Bill Cosby, once celebrated as America's most trusted TV father, is now wearing a far darker title, Public Enemy #1. And this time, it isn't for the scandals we've already heard. No, this time the headlines scream something unthinkable. Murder. Yes, you heard me. The man who once preached family values on primetime television is now tangled in an investigation over the suspicious, possibly covered-up death of Malcolm Jamal Warner, the young actor who played his son on The Cosby Show. The sitcom that once represented warmth, humor, and unity now feels like a prelude to a chilling true crime saga. How did we go from sitcom hugs to handcuffs? And why has Hollywood gone silent? Could this be the shadowy secret they've been desperate to bury for decades? Whispers swirl. Did Malcolm stumble on something too dangerous to reveal? Was his sudden death a message to anyone who might follow his path? Because now, authorities believe Cosby's involvement may run far deeper than anyone dared to imagine. With Cosby in custody under relentless questioning, the internet is in a frenzy. This isn't just a scandal. This is a scandal with a body count. So buckle up, because the next few minutes will drag you straight into the arrest, the conspiracy, and the Hollywood power games that have stayed hidden for years. And trust me, you're not ready for what's about to come. Brace yourself, because this story could rewrite everything you thought you knew about Malcolm Jamal Warner. To most of us, Malcolm wasn't just Theo Huxtable. He was the nation's little brother, the grounded intellect with that easy smile. That felt like home. But behind that smile, something far heavier brewed, and it may have cost him his life. When news first trickled out about his unexpected death, it came without the usual details. No autopsy leaks, no police breakdowns, no heartfelt family statement. Just a thick, unnatural silence that felt like walking through fog, disorienting, oppressive, and dangerous. And in Hollywood, silence usually means one thing. Someone wants the truth buried. And baby, this isn't a flicker of gossip. This is a roaring inferno. Because people who were once close to Malcolm, ex-friends, whistleblowers, even fellow cast members, are now stepping forward. And the story they're telling doesn't match the clean narrative the public was fed. It's a story dripping with betrayal, manipulation, career blackballing, and psychological warfare. And at the center of it, the man who gave Malcolm his first big break, Bill Cosby. Yes, that Bill Cosby. Once the icon of fatherly love, now a convicted predator, with a legacy in ruins. But what if the darkness we already know is just the beginning? Sources claim that during the final 5 years of his life, Malcolm wasn't struggling with addiction or money. He was suffocating under the grip of powerful hands determined to control his career. Let's rewind. When The Cosby Show ended, fans assumed Malcolm would explode into superstardom. He had the looks, the intelligence, the Hollywood grooming, and yet his presence faded. Quietly, steadily, deliberately. Industry insiders whisper that it wasn't bad luck. It was punishment. Why? Because Malcolm refused to play the game. And what game is that? The dirty underbelly of Hollywood, the compromises, the strings, the silent obedience to unspoken rules. Malcolm had seen things on The Cosby Show set that haunted him. He reportedly confided in friends that people he once trusted had revealed monstrous sides when the cameras stopped rolling. One friend recalls Malcolm saying over dinner, "There are things I wish I could unsee. People I trusted became predators." Some believe he was gearing up to tell his story, not about Cosby's crimes against women, though he knew about them, but about the mental control, intimidation, and career sabotage Cosby allegedly inflicted on anyone who stepped out of line. Cosby wasn't just a co-star, he was a gatekeeper. And when you challenged him, your career wasn't injured, it was buried. Just ask Lisa Bonet, who mysteriously disappeared from the show after A Different World. Officially, it was creative differences. Unofficially, whispers say it was because she clashed with Cosby's image control. Malcolm tried to keep the peace publicly, but behind the scenes, it was a silent war, a psychological chess match he could not win. By his 40s, he was worn down. Big studio calls had stopped. Directing opportunities came and went. His public appearances grew rare. On social media, he started posting cryptic quotes about betrayal, masks, and false loyalty. In interviews, He sounded distant, reflective, like a man saying goodbye without the words. Then came the paranoia. According to a former assistant, Malcolm became convinced his phone was tapped. He started writing everything by hand, refusing to email. He ignored calls from unfamiliar numbers. He told the assistant plainly, "They don't want me to speak. They want me gone." And then, before vanishing from public view, he reached out to two people: a former network executive and a controversial podcaster known for exposing Hollywood's secrets. Both confirm he left them cryptic voicemails in the weeks before his death. One of those messages said, "If anything happens to me, don't believe the headlines. I was silenced. They want to erase me." So now the question, who were they? Was he pointing to Cosby's closest allies? The powerful media machinery that protects certain stars and crushes others? Or an elite circle of executives with the power to decide who gets remembered and who gets erased? Here's what we do know. Malcolm's death is anything but straightforward. No clear cause, no public autopsy. A single report claiming he passed peacefully at home, then disappearing from news sites within a day. Even stranger, fans who tried to post tributes reported their posts being removed or hidden from searches. One wrote, "It's like someone doesn't want us talking about him." And now, the cracks in the official story are widening. More voices are demanding answers. More eyes are turning toward the hidden machinery of Hollywood. Was Malcolm depressed? Possibly. But was he also a man crushed under the weight of a system built on secrecy, where heroes can become prey and victims can be erased? That's the question. And the deeper we look, the more dangerous the truth feels. What you're about to hear next, the final 48 hours of Malcolm Jamal Warner's life, the meetings he kept, the files he guarded, and the unspoken reason why certain faces were missing from his private funeral, could blow this entire case apart. By the time we last left this story, Malcolm's sudden death had already shaken the industry. But what came next didn't just raise eyebrows, it froze spines. This wasn't rumor mill gossip anymore. This was the kind of detail that makes you rethink everything you believed about fame, loyalty, and the cost of telling the truth. Hours after Malcolm's body was found, people from inside the entertainment machine began to whisper. And these weren't random bystanders. They were the quiet watchers, wardrobe hands, personal assistants, tour crew, drivers, and security guards. The ones who see everything but say nothing. Until now. One of the most haunting accounts came from a former production assistant on Read Between the Lines, the BET series where Malcolm starred and held creative control. This assistant, still too afraid to be named, described a chilling shift in his demeanor during the final weeks on set. He'd keep saying, "I'm being watched. They want me gone." At first, we thought it was just stress, but then it escalated. He stopped trusting everyone, carried a burner phone everywhere, and refused to be alone for even a minute. That wasn't the Malcolm we knew. Then came the moment that still shakes them. Malcolm locking himself in his trailer for hours, sobbing, muttering the same words over and over. "They took Cosby. Now they want me next." And when you remember that this was before his death, that confession lands like a punch to the chest. So who were they? And why would they want him erased? A retired television executive has a theory. According to them, Malcolm had been quietly building a massive tell-all project, an expose on the Bill Cosby empire and the network of powerful figures behind it. And this wasn't some bitter outburst from a sidelined actor. The executive insists Malcolm had been gathering hard evidence for decades, files, recordings, testimony, not just on Cosby, but on an entire circle of industry elites who allegedly used wholesome family-friendly platforms to shield their worst behavior. But here's the gut punch. That project will now never see the light of day. Friends say Malcolm had finally committed to releasing his expose in late 2025. He'd reached out to major players, Netflix, Hulu, even YouTube originals, and initial talks seemed promising. Then, in a matter of days, every conversation went silent. Contracts evaporated. Emails vanished. A streaming rep stopped responding mid-negotiation. That's when Malcolm began telling people he was cursed. That they were shutting every door. Maybe it was paranoia, but the facts suggest otherwise. In July 2025, his car was tampered with. The brakes cut clean through. The story never hit mainstream press. That same month, someone breached his home security system. Nothing stolen except for every hard-eye drive in the house. 2 weeks before his death, he posted a cryptic Instagram story. "If I die mysteriously, just know I didn't do it to myself." The truth was too heavy. Within 30 minutes, it was deleted. But screenshots are everywhere. Now, so was Malcolm about to drop something bigger than anyone expected? Let's talk motive. While many still see Cosby as a fallen TV father, Malcolm allegedly saw something much darker, something that started in The Cosby Show years but stayed. Hidden in plain sight. Multiple insiders recall strange closed-door meetings on set. VIP guests who shouldn't have been there. NDA forms handed out like candy. Rumors about exploitation. And one thing they all remember. Malcolm was always near the circle but never inside it. Maybe that exclusion is what set him digging. Maybe it was about protecting others. Or maybe it was because he feared his own name would be next on a list. And then there was the personal toll. According to a close friend, Malcolm was crushed by the fallout of Cosby's public disgrace. Not because he defended him, but because the industry's punishment didn't stop with Cosby. Networks pulled reruns, canceled royalties, erased archives, and in the same sweep they erased the rest of the cast. "They buried me with him," Malcolm reportedly told that friend. An entertainment lawyer says it was a textbook quiet blacklist, the kind that doesn't make headlines but ruins careers all the same. And just when Malcolm began to find his footing again, booking speaking engagements, producing indie projects, prepping a podcast, that's when the accidents started piling up. He wasn't alone. Over the past 5 years, other Cosby-connected names have faced bizarre misfortunes. Jeffrey Owens, the Yale-trained actor who played Elvin, was suddenly photographed working at Trader Joe's and shamed in headlines. Lisa Bonet cut herself off from most of the cast and lives almost completely off-grid. Tempest Bledsoe saw project after project stall amid whispered talk of PTSD from her years on set. It was as if silence earned you quiet punishment, but speaking out got you erased entirely. And remember Malcolm's planned documentary, titled Fade to Black, What the Camera Never Showed? It was supposed to wrap filming in September 2025. He died in August. Now here's where the story turns truly sinister. Just 2 days before Malcolm was found dead, a private investigator he'd hired contacted a journalist with explosive claims. The PI was tracing a network of retired NBC executives, a network allegedly tied to decades of cover-ups, hush money payouts, and the grooming of child actors. And here's the twist. One of those executives had also died earlier this year, under natural circumstances that never sat right with insiders. So what is this? A tragic loss? Or the systematic silencing of a man who knew too much? Either way, what the coroner's second report reveals next will leave your jaw on the floor. And this is where the story shifts into the courtroom, the place where decades of whispers either die or erupt into history. The room was packed, the air electric with tension, as Bill Cosby sat rigid between his attorneys, his face carved into stone. Prosecutors wasted no time, stepping straight into what they called their most damning evidence yet. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was a criminal proceeding with the eyes of the world locked in. The first gut punch came in the form of previously unseen surveillance footage. In the grainy video, recorded just weeks before Malcolm Jamal Warner's death, two figures stood in sharp contrast. Warner, visibly agitated, jabbing the air with his hands, and Cosby draped in an overcoat and sunglasses, unmoved, eerily composed. No audio was clear enough to quote, but the body language screamed volumes. Legal analysts pointed out how this directly undercut Cosby's prior statements, claiming the two hadn't spoken in years. Then came the surprise witness, a retired NBC staffer in her 60s. She took the stand, voice trembling, and recounted a moment from 1992 that she says has haunted her ever since. She claimed Cosby was furious about Warner's desire to professionally distance himself from the Cosby Show brand, and she swore she heard him say, "If he ever crosses me, I'll make sure nobody remembers his name." The courtroom froze. Gasps echoed against the walls. The defense jumped to object, calling the claim outdated and unprovable. But the damage was already done. The image of America's dad was slipping further into shadow. And then, the Black Book. Prosecutors revealed what they allege was Warner's private journal, kept in the final years of his life. While portions were blurred for court, leaked pages began circulating online. In one entry, his handwriting, verified by experts, read, "They don't want me to speak. Cosby has too many allies. If I vanish, it wasn't by choice." The defense argued it could be the ramblings of a stressed man, even suggesting fabrication. But forensic specialists matched the ink, paper, and pen strokes to Warner's known personal notes. The most chilling moment of all came from the second autopsy report. A forensic pathologist testified that Warner's body contained toxic compounds not consistent with any legal prescription, and in doses that had to be intentionally administered. This wasn't a tragic accident. This wasn't an unfortunate relapse. This was precision, an execution disguised as fate. Cosby's lawyers tried to steer the jury toward alternative suspects, hinting at old Hollywood grudges or personal feuds. They painted Warner as a man unraveling after years of career disappointments. But that narrative cracked under the weight of emotional testimonies from those who knew him best. Felicia Rashad and Tempest Bledsoe took the stand, their voices steady but eyes wet, describing Warner as sharp, grounded, and terrified, not unstable. Then came Lisa Bonet. For years, she had distanced herself from the Cosby orbit, citing creative differences and a personal unease that never faded. On the stand, she revealed Warner once told her he'd uncovered something enormous about Cosby, something that would change how the world saw him forever. She quoted him, "The world only saw the father. I saw something else. And they need to know." Her voice cracked as she described how he withdrew completely after that, canceling projects, dodging calls, retreating into an isolation that now seemed less like paranoia and more like self-preservation. By the end of the prosecution's case, Cosby's defense looked threadbare. Analysts across CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News agreed. This trial wasn't just about one man's guilt or innocence. It was about a potential cover-up spanning decades. The prosecution's final blow was a montage of Warner's career highlights, closing with a 2015 interview where he reflected on fame's shadow. His last words in that clip silenced the courtroom. "If anything ever happens to me, ask questions. Don't just take their story." Jurors wiped tears. So did members of the press. In a last desperate move, Cosby's attorneys requested a mistrial, citing prejudicial media coverage and emotional manipulation of the jury. The judge denied it outright, stating the evidence was substantial and impossible to ignore. Now, as the jury deliberates, tension coils tighter around the courthouse. If convicted, Cosby could face charges from obstruction to conspiracy to commit murder, and possibly life in prison without parole. Outside, crowds gather daily, holding candles, posters, and signs reading "Justice for Malcolm and Cosby New." The once proud legacy of The Cosby Show now lies in ruin, smothered under betrayal, silence, and shadows. What happens next will decide not just Cosby's future, but how Hollywood remembers Malcolm, and the price of speaking against power. As one reporter outside put it, "The mask has slipped. Now we see the face beneath. This case isn't over, not by a long shot. The whispers have become screams, and the world is demanding answers." Whether you believe in the conspiracy or not, one fact remains. Malcolm Jamal Warner's story isn't finished. And in this game of power, truth, and erasure, nothing stays buried forever.